So this is a very special episode of Roadfly TV. I am in Great Britain. We're in the northwest corner in a town named Keswick. These are some of the tightest, smallest, tiniest, one-lane, 6-foot wide roads in all of northern England. These roads are the roads that the 2013 Subaru BRZ was built to drive on. So we're going to spend some time up here in Keswick, then we're going to meander down to the south coast over the course of the next week, and finally ending up in Brighton, and then we're going to spend a couple of days at the Goodwood Revival. But let's go take this thing out and see if that low center of gravity, that 2,800 pound car, and that awesomely tuned, normally aspirated engine can tear up these roads. Let's go. These switchbacks are just incredible. I mean, they're very sharp, very fast. All of a sudden you come over a hill, it's a blind hill, and there's a sharp switchback going to the right, and if you miss it, you're really going straight off a 1,000-foot cliff. I tell you, I don't know who found these roads, but they are absolutely incredible. You really have to be on your game and pay attention, but it really shows off the suspension and the real driving characteristics of the front engine rear-wheel drive that they've got in this car. So let me just touch on steering real quick. The BRZ has electric steering, which is what everybody does now for weight savings, fuel economy, etc. It is a little bit light on center, lighter than I would like because it's such a lightweight car. However, in these switchbacks, it is very reactive, it's very responsive. You know, of course it doesn't kick back as much as I'd like, you know, an old school manual or hydraulic system, but generally speaking, they did a good job tuning the steering. As far as suspension goes, it actually is a great compromise between a track car and a street car. You know, it's a little bit harsh here on these English country roads because these roads weren't designed, you know, with our level of comfort in mind. So I don't mind it because I like a sporty suspension. But when you get, you know, back in the States where our roads are much softer and, you know, our grades are much more even, I think it's going to ride really, really nice. At times I did notice that the springs were overpowering the shocks a little bit, and for the track junkies out there, that might be something to consider is a stiffer shock. But you know, for most people and most of the folks drop by in this car, that's not going to really be a consideration. I think the suspension setup is really well tuned for our roads. Okay, so the cabin might be a little bit noisy for some, but this is a driver's car. We want the feedback. I want to hear it. I want to hear the engine. I want to hear the tires. I want to hear that sweet engine note. So I'm going to be quiet and let you listen. And the exhaust note is, and the engine note is absolutely perfect. Okay, let me see. Back again to low center of gravity driving abilities. The Boxer engine is mounted almost, or the crank is almost at the level of the front axle. It looks like it's probably only maybe an inch above the front axle. And that low center of gravity really helps create the responsiveness down low because you don't have a lot of the shifting of the weight. So not only is you have a low center of gravity the entire vehicle, now you have a low center of gravity on the engine itself and on the transmission as well. And the only other thing where you can be focused on is really lowering your unsprung weight at that point, which is your wheels, brakes, things that are hanging off the corners. The standard tires on all of these new cars are these high efficiency, they're meant for mileage. Guys, the tires are very hard on this car. Now, it allowed us to have a little bit more fun at the Herwood Hill Climb because the car got a little sideways, a little bit easier. But when I was mentioning things that you guys might want to consider if you're an enthusiast, you might want to change out, you're going to want some stickier tires, trust me. Another handling note, since we've had so much time running very high speed, tight turns here, I mean just days and days and days of driving, is the alignment. Personally, I think that the high-speed stability is not quite there on this car. We can partly blame that on the tires. We can also partly blame that on the alignment. So I think you need a little bit more toe in than this thing has right now. And it also pushes a little bit more than I'd like it to. So maybe figuring out what it's going to take to get to the front end to stick a little bit better, whether that's just some camber changes or whatnot. But anyway, it's something to consider. Later on today, we're going to Herwood House, a significant country house because it is a mansion. It is larger than the White House, but it's simply called a country house. That's where we're gonna have lunch, but that is also the general location of the Herwood Hill Climb. So we're gonna get to play with the new BRZ at the Herwood Hill Climb, which is one of the oldest, and might be the oldest hill climb in the country. And I bet, I didn't know this, I just learned this, that hill climbs were basically created in the UK. You know, we all think of Pikes Peak or something like that for a hill climb, but the history of the hill climb is more that when young folks wanted to race their cars and they didn't have the access money to get onto, you know, one of the tracks, they would close off unofficially these small village roads and race from point A to point B up the hill, and they would just clock it. So we're gonna be at Herwood Hill Climb. It's a little bit shy of a mile. It's a very technical, twisty track, but I do think it's gonna show off the handling characteristics as well as the braking characteristics of the new BRZ.
Hope so, Boo. Right?
This thing goes, man. If you can spin the butt, you can spin the tail end around without any effort whatsoever. I mean, this hill climb is sort of like an autocross, but hard to talk. Very technical course. But you can see, you get the tail out so easily. Once you get this thing set up a little bit with so smooth, and taking traction off allows you to effortlessly drift for a very long period of time through some of these longer turns. And this is fully standard 100% car that you buy at the dealer. Just take traction all the way off by holding it in for 3 seconds, and you're just going to have a boatload of fun. Now, it does push a little bit in the low speed turns, so make sure before you are going to do 90 degrees, sub 30 mile an hour turn, you really need to get the nose fully planted, settle the car, then turn, and the rear end will hook up and shoot you back out the other side. Great. Most of the earliest sports cars were born in the UK. I mean, famous names like, you know, Bentley and Aston and Austin and Jaguar, and I mean, the list just goes on and on. Back in the 20s when these cars first came to be, they were driving on these same roads, and there's certainly no other place to really experience the historical sports car culture than the Goodwood Revival, which we'll be doing at the end of the week. And I'm really looking forward to it. Not only is it the historic cars, but actually the term to revival, because everybody dresses up in some sort of period costume almost. And then in addition to automotive, there are also planes flying overhead. So it's going to be quite an experience. I can't wait to get the video. So now you know why I'm dressed this way, because everybody at the Goodwood Revival is dressed this way. We're all dressed period appropriate, because the festival is as much a celebration of the culture of motorsports as it is the enthusiasm of driving a sports car. I'm Charlie Romero from RoadflyTV. Thanks for watching this special episode. We will see you next time. I'm heading back to Goodwood. See you guys. All right, well, this is what happens when you're driving in Europe. Sometimes you go down the one ways and you don't even mean to. So you guys know the debate as to whether something's a sports car or not. I'm going to tell you a secret. The definition of a sports car is what color it looks good in. That's the final deciding factor. If your car doesn't look good in red, if it can't look good in red, it's not a sports car. And it's because there's just too much of it, which means it's too big. And if it's too big, it's not light. If it's not light, it doesn't handle well, and it doesn't go fast. Real simple equation. Secret to the universe.